Today I'm going to share 5 things I wish someone had told me before I started photography. And this video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build your perfect website. Hello and welcome to another video. If you're new here, my name is Ian Worth and I've been making a living with my camera for the last 17 years. I started by shooting portraits and events in a bit of a documentary style before moving on to landscape photography, teaching and creating these videos here on YouTube. So jumping straight into it, the first thing I wish I knew when I first started out is composition and light matter more than camera equipment. But that being said, of course we need cameras, don't we? Otherwise photography would be completely impossible, wouldn't it? So here's a few thoughts on gear before we get into the more important aspects of photography. So when I first got into photography, I thought I needed, the best camera, the fastest lenses, and a bunch of amazing accessories to take great photos. And I spent hours, researching cameras, debating megapixels and stressing over whether or not I needed a full frame sensor or not. And looking back on it, I wish someone had told me the simple truth. Your gear doesn't matter as much as you actually think. I think what really makes a photo stand out is composition, lighting, and knowing how to use the camera that you already have. I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking better gear automatically means better photos. Camera companies love to sell that idea, don't they? But I think here's what I've learned the hard way. A fancy camera won't magically improve your photography if you don't understand how to create a meaningful composition in the first place. That being said, obviously we do need a camera of some kind, don't we? So if I was starting over as a complete beginner, here's what I'd do a little bit differently. First, I think about the type of photography I actually want to shoot. Then, instead of obsessing over camera bodies, I'd actually focus on finding a good lens that fitted my style of photography. And for me, that would be a standard zoom lens because, it's super versatile and can do pretty much everything in most situations. And once I've, got that bit sorted, I'd pick a camera body to go with it. And honestly, I'd probably choose a used one. That way I'd have extra money to spend on things that probably actually make more of a difference, like a solid tripod, a reliable camera bag, and a good set of quality filters. Those are the things that are really worth spending money on because going cheap on them is usually a big waste of money. A solid tripod, for example, will last years. I've got one back there, which is I think 15 years old or even older, and it still works absolutely perfectly. If you spend money on the right things from the start, you'll save so much in the long run. I've seen some of the most stunning photos taken with old budget-friendly cameras, and I've seen some truly awful shots taken with thousands of pounds worth of equipment as well. These 2 prints are from a video I put out a few weeks ago. One of them was shot with a 9-year-old 16 megapixel camera that cost £200. The other, a 40 megapixel £1,600 camera. And as you can see, the prints look virtually identical. Anyway, enough about gear because these next 4 points are way more important in my opinion. So one of the biggest things that changed my photography was learning how to create a real sense of depth in my images. Now, when I first started out, a lot of my shots fell kind of flat. They looked fine, but they didn't really pull you in or make you feel like you were actually there. It took me a while to figure out why. But the answer was simple. I wasn't thinking about depth. Like, when we look at an amazing landscape in real life, our eyes naturally process depth, don't they? We can see, layers, we can see the foreground, the midground and the background, and all blending together in a way that kind of feels immersive to us, doesn't it? But when you take a photo, you're compressing all of that onto a very flat surface. If you don't add elements that create a sense of depth, the scene loses that feeling of space and dimension. So for me, I think one of the easiest ways is to use a very strong foreground. Now, this could be anything. It could be, say, a rock or some flowers or even a path or something that immediately grabs the viewer's eye and leads them into the scene. Without a foreground, a landscape can look distant and uninviting. But when you place something interesting in the foreground, it draws people in and makes the image feel way more three-dimensional. And it's such an easy option to take as well. Then there's atmospheric depth, which for me plays a massive part in my photos now. It's something, you see quite a lot of in mountain photography especially. Distant mountains or hills often appear lighter and less detailed than the ones in the foreground because of haze or natural mist in the atmosphere. That natural layering creates a sense of depth for us, and you can emphasize it by paying attention to how the light interacts with that as well. And of course, depth of field plays a big role too. A wide aperture like say f2.8 or f4 can create a shallow depth of field for us, making the foreground sharp and the background soft or vice versa, which can also work well for adding depth to an image. So once I started paying attention to depth, I think my images instantly became more engaging to me anyway. Instead of just snapping a nice view, I felt like I was creating compositions that had layers and dimensions. Photos that I hope make people feel like they could step right into them. This shot is an example of lots of different ways actually you can add depth to an image. Firstly, we've got the out of focus foreground, which straight away creates a sense of separation. The out of focus branches also help to frame the composition, and because they are dark, they help the eye transition into the brighter parts of the scene beyond. When I look at this shot, I think it's clear my intention was to make the house the focal point of the image. The hazy background again helps to emphasize the depth and space within the scene. Here's a shot of the same scene without the foreground branches. Let me know in the comments which you prefer, because I'm still undecided on this one. Yeah, do let me know. I think the next point is even more vital, but before we get onto that, I'd just like to mention how Squarespace has helped my photography business over the years and how it can help your photography grow as well. So I've been using Squarespace for many years, and my website has become an integral part of my business. Along with amazing looking galleries, Squarespace has a fantastic built-in e-commerce section. So to start selling your own photos as prints or digital products, just drag and drop your images into the page. You can set your price as well, add the description, and you're good to go. In next to no time, you'll be ready to start earning money from your own photography. Now, fortunately, you don't need any experience with web design to build your own site, because Squarespace offers an AI enhanced website builder, which will help you create a fully customized website in just a few steps. So to set up your very own website, be sure to check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Ian Worth to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So my next point I wish I knew sooner is colour theory. Now, I didn't fully grasp the power of colour theory until more recently. But honestly, if I was just starting out, this is one of the first things I'd learn now. Colour has such a massive impact on an image, and knowing how to use it properly can make or break a shot, I feel. At first, I didn't think that much about it. I was more focused on, composition, lighting, and just getting the technical side of photography right. But, I think over time I started to realize that the way colors interact in a scene can completely change the mood and feel of an image. I think once I started paying attention to color, my photos became way more intentional and I think a little bit more impactful as well. Now, one of the easiest ways to improve the use of colour is by understanding the colour wheel. Now, certain colours naturally work well together while others can clash, and making an image feel unbalanced, I guess. I think a simple trick is using complementary colours, which are colours that sit opposite each other on the colour wheel, like say blue and orange or red and green. These pairs can create a strong contrast and also make an image pop. Another approach is using analogous colours, which are colours that sit next to each other on the colour wheel, like say different shades of blues and greens or reds and oranges. And this creates a more harmonious, calming effect, which works really well for soft, dreamy landscapes, for example. But colour isn't just about pairing, it's also about balance and dominance. If everything in your frame is kind of competing for attention with strong clashing colours, the image can feel quite chaotic. Instead, I would maybe consider which colour is taking the lead and which ones are supporting it. Another game changer for me was realising how colour temperature affects an image. Cooler tones like blues and purples often create a more moody and dramatic feel, while warmer tones like oranges and yellows feel inviting and peaceful. Sometimes just tweaking the white balance ever so slightly in post-production can shift the entire emotion of a photo. Once I started applying these ideas, I stopped relying on look to get a good colour balance in my shots, and I was actively looking for colour relationships actually in the field when I was shooting to create stronger compositions. Now, if I could go back and give myself advice when I was just starting out, I had to pay attention to colour from day one and look at my favourite images and see how the colours worked together and use colour with intention. It's often one of the easiest ways to take your photography to the next level, and it doesn't cost a single penny, which is always good. So when I first started photography all those years ago, I spent way too much time looking at what everyone else was doing. I'd look at Facebook and photography magazines, and naturally I thought, all of this is fantastic. I really like the look of it. So I started chasing, those same type of photos for myself. So trends in photography come and go, don't they? One year it's an analog vibe, next it's light and airy or something like that. And while there's nothing wrong with those looks or experimenting, the problem with trends is they can lead you away from developing your own style. You start, creating photos because they're popular, not because they mean something to you personally. Plus, as trends die, the work can quickly feel outdated. Now, I wish I'd have figured this out sooner. Instead of chasing what was trending, I should have focused on what actually inspired me. What kind of photos do I personally connect with? What types of light, colour and composition feels actually natural to me? These are the questions that can help develop your own voice as a photographer rather than just copying what's currently popular. The funny thing is, when you stop following trends and start shooting what you actually love, your work becomes way more interesting to you. Instead of just another trendy photo that blends in with thousands of other shots, your photos start to have personality, and that's what makes them stand out from everybody else's. So if I could give myself one piece of advice, it would be to stop worrying about what's popular and what other people are doing and start focusing on what excites me personally. Let your natural curiosity lead you in the right direction. With all that being said, studying work from other photographers can be incredibly inspiring. This book here, which is called Modern Colour by Fred Herzog, actually inspired me to start my Between the Hills photography project. But I think there's probably a difference between, a trend and taking inspiration from other photographers. Now, this one is right up there with the most important lessons I've learned over the years, maybe more important than all of the rest. When you're passionate about photography, it's so easy to get caught up in the chase for the next shot. Sometimes you're constantly thinking about locations, checking weather forecasts, or, planning sunrise missions. And before you know it, photography can start to consume every spare moment that you have. For a long time, I felt like I had to be out shooting all of the time. If there was good light, I needed to be there. If I missed a beautiful sunset, I'd feel like this, weird kind of guilt, I guess, like I'd wasted an opportunity. And if I wasn't out there shooting, I was editing, researching, or thinking about the next trip. But here's what I realised the hard way. If you don't take a step back every now and then, you can really burn out. And I think this happens to a lot of people as well. Photography should add to your life, I think, not take over it. It's so easy to get so wrapped up in improving your skills and building out your portfolio that you can forget things that really matter, like family, friends, and, just living in the moment. I think no photo is worth missing out on time with people that you care about. Some of my, favourite memories in amazing locations have nothing to do with photos I took. They're, I guess, moments where I actually put the camera down and, maybe I was sitting by the fire with friends after a long hike, or watching the stars with no distractions, or just standing on a mountain summit and fully taking it in. I think without worrying about the camera settings, it brings on a whole new meaning. And funnily enough, those moments when you just experience the landscape instead of trying to capture it actually help, I think, your photography in the long run. You start to develop a deeper connection with the places that you shoot. You begin to see things differently when you do pick up the camera again, it's with, I guess, a fresh set of eyes and a renewed, I guess, enthusiasm or passion. And it's not just about, you know, doing it out of habit or obsession, if you like. So yeah, note to past self, know when to put the camera down, be present with the people around you, and don't feel guilty for taking a break. So as you know, if you watch the channel regularly, I like to do the majority of these videos out in the field. I like to be taking photos while I'm, you know, waffling to the camera, if you like. But the reason I'm doing today's video in here is because my van currently looks like this, which is not ideal for driving around. So yeah, at the minute I'm putting the furniture in, installing all of the seating, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to have that done in the next 3 or 4 days, because I'm just so keen to get out there and do a photography road trip in the van. I really can't wait for that. So hopefully that'll be coming very, very soon. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, why not check out the one that's up here? And my ebook is over on the other side as well. And if you did enjoy it, please be sure to give the video a like. It helps these videos to reach more people. Anyway, until next week, take care.